the conditionals, I would like to now move on to DOM API. There you go. So to start with, to even show you what DOM API is, I need to have an HTML. So let's create an HTML file here, index.html. So that HTML file should be adding the JavaScript file. So just because we are already here, let me say something about where to put your script tags. If possible, always put them after all your content inside body. So here, for example, I have an h1 and things, and at the end I would like to add this, like this is jQuery. What I wanted to add was no, do I have script? No, syntax. So no, syntax. So adding your script tags to the end of the body is the best way to add your JavaScript. There's other way to like defer your JavaScript until your DOM is ready with other ways, like if you have no choices, then adding them before your body. What having those script tags on the before your content is loaded have effect on the performance of your site. So always try to keep them or load them after your DOM is ready. So this way, what's happening is whenever you're opening this HTML, your browser will be also running syntax.js file. So this will be a bad one. Oh, it's empty. So yeah, so let's start from here. I will run this on my local host. So we're talking about DOM API, and what is DOM API? What is DOM? So HTML is a markup language. What you're seeing on this editor here is an HTML, is a markup language. You see those tags there. Everything in an HTML file is wrapped in this HTML tag, and their head and body. That's standard to every HTML file. And in head, you usually have all the meta information of that page, like title, description, and all those other stuff, like nothing to do with content, mostly for SEO, for if you see this one here, for different devices and stuff. Oh, and after head you have body, which has the actual content you show on the page. So we have an h1 here, which has this DOM API text which you're seeing on the browser. So h1 is one of the DOM node. So if you look at this whole thing, it forms a tree, HTML being the root, and everything that comes within it will be like branches of that tree. So HTML has two branches, head and body. Body has different branches like the script and h1. You can have p. So this will now have two branches in its body branch. So it's going like that. So that's DOM tree. You have all the DOM elements structured in the tree. So what DOM API provides is a way to access those from your JavaScript. So this JavaScript is being executed from this page, so that page will be available for this JavaScript as, for example, document, right? I would like to have a console on this one. Sorry. Yeah. So document is one of them. You can also have window. So those are some APIs you can use from your browser. Oops, I meant to say window, right? Document, window, and you can also have things like local storage and others that are all in this window. Window is just a global of everything in that browser. So document is the one we are going to talk about. You can access nodes from your DOM tree by using document.some functions like document.get, right? So you can access or select nodes in the HTML tree by its ID, which is the most preferred, as it's more performant. It's easier for your JavaScript to find or search for that element using the ID. You can get element by class name, which is just looking at the class attribute. You can select by tag name, and so on. There's something called query selector as well, which uses CSS like selectors, basically CSS. So I can say dot my class or something, and I've selected that element. There's query selector all. So it's better to actually show something than just talk about it, right? So what I can do is I can try to read what's inside h1 element here, and say add a span here. That will, we'll just put stuffs in there to show that our JavaScript is working. So let's say I would like to query this DOM by ID. So let's give our h1 an ID, say title, right? So what this does is now we're able to select element by ID, which is called title. So, and we can do stuffs from there. So let's assign this to verb or now we can do is we can look at what's inside that or things. Because I don't have console here, I would just try like putting what we are getting from there into that span there. So for that we will have to select that span as well. not recommended, but let's say we're just selecting it with the type name, a tag name. So element by tag name. What this does is it looks for the span and it finds one and then just return that. So if you see closely, you'll have this elements instead of element by compared to the element by ID, because ID is unique for each node in HTML. So there's only one element with given ID, so you will always get one DOM node. But in case of span, in case of tag names, there can be multiple elements with the same tag name. So we'll be getting a collection of those nodes here on span. So that will be a small issue, but let's say we don't care about that right now. So what we can do is now we want to see what's inside the title and put that into the span. So what we can do is span stack the typo in world. So what it just did is it selected the span tag in the DOM and it added the inner HTML with this text. So now this is another thing, inner HTML. So whatever text or HTML that is present in that HTML node is present in inner HTML. So you can get inner HTML and you can set. So for example, right now we're just setting it to hello or whatever we want, hello 1. So it's just setting that to that span. And what we wanted to do was we want to see what's inside title. Title has inner HTML as well. So what's happening is we selected the title node, we looked at what's inside it, what HTML is within that node, and we're assigning that to the inner HTML of the span that we have. So yeah. So inner HTML, you can access inner text, which is the same thing. Just the difference is inner text will always be a text, and if there are some HTML within those nodes, that will be skipped and you will just get the text. Let me show that to you. Let's say if this was a strong, or say these are really old HTML tags. I don't even know if they still work. Yeah, it works. So underline, never use it because it's deprecated, it's gone for good. Still works, but yeah, not that I recommend. So here what's happening is it has this U tag inside its HTML, but when we access that as inner text, what it does is it just strips that U tag and then returns only the text value that is present. And if we want those HTML tags as well, you can do this, which will get the U tag as well. And now what this is doing is taking that from there and then setting it to the span. So yeah, we can select these stuffs by class name as well. Class names are just called class. You can say this has a class name message. Now you can select your message by doing similar const message equals document dot not by ID, get elements, again elements by class name. This will return collection as well. So there can be multiple DOM nodes with same class. So you'll be selecting a collection of classes and elements. So exactly like how it did for span here, we will have to select which one do we want to change, and not span but right. So what this does is it found that message element, that p tag with message class, and it is setting the text from the title. If we want to go deeper, we can, let's say we have a text area or text input field, right? And say ID. Let's just use IDs for now. Let's call it input. Now what you'll see is you'll see a text input here, and what I wanted to show is the text input has other interesting properties, like forms are quite important in websites. Element ID. So input has values, value. Let's say okay, our message will be whatever is typed into input, right? So input has a property called value, which you can also assign by having this default value property. Dot value, what value? Get element by input. I would not like to spend much time on this one, but what I was going to show is inputs have values. Let's try to change this value. Input dot value equals 45. No, it's not changing. Const input is document dot get element by ID input. ID input. Is it because I don't have a name? If somebody knows what's going on here, please let me know. Thing is, whatever I'm showing you right now is very primitive way of doing things using JavaScript. All this has been now replaced by better performing, better alternatives like frameworks and libraries like React, Vue, Angular, and lots of others, which helps you work with DOM much more efficiently, effectively, and intuitively. than doing this by yourself. All I wanted to do is introduce you to this concept of like controlling DOM using JavaScript, and let's keep this one for now. If anybody watching does know what I did wrong there, can just comment it. Next thing I wanted to show is events. So anything in DOM can have several types of events, and those events can be handled, and you can trigger something on those events. So events can be like listened by doing stuffs like add event listener. So what you can do is I don't know if there's an event called input. There you go. Ah, look at that. That's exactly what I was talking about. So what happens is when your script comes before your DOM, there's no chance for the JavaScript to know what's still in your DOM. And how that affects is like this. It was returning null because your script was coming before the input was even added to the DOM tree. So that's one of the issue, right? So now the first thing we tried here is working already. So the value in the text box was 56, if you see here. So it was set to 56 by default, and what this did is my message is now set to value from that input, which was 56, and now it has 56. And there is this, which is directly setting the value of that input to 45, and now this has value 45. Now there's one more thing, this event listener on change. So whenever the value in this text field changes, we're doing this here, which is setting the message's value to the value from that input field. So whatever I change here is not it's just change. Yeah, so doesn't really matter that much. I think it's because React.js uses onChange, or is also you have this attribute way of using event listeners. You can actually have onChange here. That's nothing to do with React, sorry. That's HTML attribute that adds whatever event listener, like whatever JavaScript function you have defined already into this, and it will just attach that instead of going and selecting that input from here. This is quite popular, like in HTML, in React.js as well, we do that. But initially, that looked very not a proper way to do it. So people prefer doing everything from JavaScript. So yeah, that was like separating your logic from your HTML view. But the approach we use in things like React is we try to encapsulate the functionality of a component within it, which is it's a mix of styles, markups, logics and everything into one single thing, which is called component. Yeah, there are like different approaches which evolved by time. Just a matter of what makes your life easier. So yeah, so those were some event handlers, or one of them. Yeah, simply it can have like click handler as well. So if this was a button, say we have a button, say we have a button in our HTML called say not btn but button button. So you'll see this click me button here. So what we can do is we just selected it by ID, so we have it as button here. What we can do is we can add an event listener to it, say click event, and what we want to do then is all up to you. So say alert. I want to show an alert saying you clicked me or something. Right, so what you can do is now click it, and you see you clicked me. Right, so there are different handlers like these: load, change, there's before unload, there's scroll handlers, there's all type of handlers. Let's see if this one okay, there might be a lot here, but yeah. So there are other handlers. You can go over the documentation somewhere online, but the way you handle those or listen to those events is like this. Yeah, add event listener. So that's probably most of the DOM manipulation, DOM selection, node selection, and everything you can do with JavaScript. Again, it's not, if you're, I don't know when you will do this, but it's just to let you know that this is how it works. React, for example, how does it work? It does things like these to the actually, yeah, like these new libraries and frameworks, they have something called things like that to avoid updating the DOM unnecessarily. So updating or modifying DOM trees are expensive for browser, so they try to avoid doing that directly. So maintaining like in-memory trees and handling things more efficiently, and only updating DOM only when it's needed. So that's the approach some of these frameworks use. And yeah, you might not really need to ever do like DOM manipulation by yourself if you're going to go for React or some other frameworks. Yeah, but that was it. That was all about DOM APIs. That was not all, but let me check if there are. Just like get element, you can you might have already seen something like let's say I have a button. I want to create this. You can see query selectors example. So this is the way you would select the same button on line 6 by using query selector. It's just CSS selectors if you know CSS already. but I'm not going to go into deep about that. But what I wanted to do was to show you the create element method. Sorry, what the create element. So this is how you would create an element in DOM tree. This is not yet in DOM tree itself. What this did is it just created a button node, which you can then append to whatever you want. So say document.body is your body, or your DOM's body, right? Yeah, there you go. By doing this, you're creating a new button which didn't existed in your HTML. You just created it with JavaScript magic, and now you're appending that to your body. It's better if I give some more properties to button, because new button. So yeah, this will create a button, append it to the body at the end, and you have this new button here. So yeah, that's about, yeah. So there is several different ways to append children. Like you can be, for example, here you're selecting the parent element where you want the new element to be appended, and you're appending child to it. You can do append to, or there are several other ways. Before something, after something. Yeah, but really, I don't think it's needed to go that deep into things. That was useful back 7-8 years ago when I was doing everything in vanilla JS. I didn't use frameworks, but now you might not need it. But it's yeah, depends on what work you're looking at, or is like frameworks like React is even possible in that project. I've been doing this very recently as well. I've been working on Drupal projects where we don't have React, and we have to use all these DOM API to do JavaScript stuffs. Yeah, so all depends. But this is basic. Like with just this, you're able to select anything from the DOM tree, input fields, push it into different elements, create a new element, push it into another node, handle events like click, change. There are several others like scroll, onload. Onload is when the DOM is loaded. Things like that. So I think that's enough